want to begin with the purpose of this online lesson. First of all, we would like to enhance confidence, mastery, and proficiency for improving performance in mathematics at whatever station you are, whichever school. And the strategic focus is number one, timely and quality completion of the syllabus. So our strategic focus, the first one is timely and quality completion of the syllabus. You realize that sometimes there are omissions in the curriculum or in the syllabus for that matter, and it is the very reason why our learners don't perform well. And therefore, it's important that we strategically and timely complete the syllabus. But this must be done qualitatively. And therefore, I want us to share a few tips that can help us to qualitatively complete the syllabus. As you are aware, there are 12 topics in the mathematics subject. But these can be categorized into the following. But before we categorize them, I must quickly tell you that all of them must be taught and taught well to our learners. So let's look at the categories of topics that we must teach and complete with our learners. The first category can be prerequisite. So what are these prerequisite topics? These are topics that must be taught before the others. In other words, the learners must be grounded in these topics, because such topics sometimes integrate into other topics, and without that knowledge, you may not be able to handle some other topics. So such topics are operations on whole numbers, such topics can also include integers, as well as algebra. Dear viewer, it is no doubt that operations on whole numbers is the basis for our mathematics. If the learner cannot ably add, ably subtract, ably multiply, and ably divide, it becomes a problem for the learner to move on to another step, especially in regard to things to do with operations of numbers. Therefore, our learners ought to be well-grounded, and which is the reason you'll find this topic being handled at a very early stage, so that these learners get the basics and don't find problems when they are dealing with operations on whole numbers. Dear viewer, the topic integers is very important. You and I know that if you have the knowledge of integers, there are many other topics that you can handle well. For example, set concepts. There comes a time where you have to deal with forming and solving equations. Now, forming and solving equations involves a lot the knowledge of integers, the rules that pertain to the change of signs. And therefore, it is important that the learners get to know this topic early enough. However, as you may realize in our practice, this topic begins in primary 5. But at a lower level, the number line is handled, right? But the actual concepts are developed from primary 5. So you need really to prepare our learners very well to have good knowledge about integers. Then we look at algebra. Algebra, colleagues, is a topic that guides a lot in mathematics. Not only at primary, but even at secondary, even at tertiary institutions. So it's important that we give the golden rules of algebra. We really look at the concepts and make sure that we teach them up to completion. We don't simply touch this and that, this one and that one. And therefore, it's important that we handle these topics prior to the other topics. Then we have topics that we call bulky. There are topics that we call bulky, dear viewer, bulky topics. These are topics with a lot of content. You and I, basing on the curriculum, know that there are topics which have a lot of content, and which is the reason we are calling them bulky. So let's look at some of these bulky topics. One of them is length, mass, and capacity. Length, mass, and capacity. The other topic is lines, angles, and geometric figures. This topic in primary 7 is called geometric construction. And of course, you also know that in primary 4, it has two names, the 2-dimension and the 3-dimension geometry. So this is another topic with a lot of content, as we shall unveil later on. Then the other topic that has a lot of content is fractions. Dear viewer, fractions is quite a big topic. It has a lot of concepts, and therefore, it is the reason we categorize it as bulky. As we shall see later on, we need to be careful, and a lot careful, with these bulky topics, because by coincidence, these very topics happen to be the tricky ones, especially at PLE. Many times our learners have a bloody nose with such topics, and so we need to handle them in width, in depth, and we must complete the concepts they are in these very topics. There is another big topic, dear colleague, and that one is data handling. Data handling. This is another big topic. You realize there are many categories of graphs because this is to do with graphs, it is to do with statistics, and therefore there are many categories of graphs. We ought to handle them exhaustively. If you may realize, in 2023 PLE, there was a graph in section A, and this is actually a real-life graph, a readily corner. But a good many of our learners failed that graph, and the interpretation was not very complicated. But why did they fail it? Reason is very simple. Because they were not acquainted with such graphs. So you need really to look at the curriculum and interpret the topic that you are going to teach. The good thing with the curriculum that we are using, the competence-based, is that these people always give you guidance. First of all, they give the background to the topic. Then they give you the matrix, where you'll find the content, where you'll find the competences, the learner's activities, but also they give you guidance to the teacher. What do you have to do? What do you not have to do? And how best can you handle that topic? So it's important that we keep reference to our curriculum whenever we are handling a topic. So that was just to give you a tip on how to handle such topics. Relatedly, these topics require more time. Now, this is not to say that it is a die or do or die. No, it means that you must be strategic, you must be a master tactician in the way you handle these topics by strategizing in terms of assessment. How often do your learners access questions about length, mass, and capacity? And mind you, length, if you look at the PLE structure, they will handle the length, that is in terms of area, in terms of perimeter, in terms of circumference, and the application, right? And in terms of conversions, right? But majorly applications. Then when you look at mass, they also handle mass, right? And they also handle capacity. So normally they have a balanced set of items in the paper. So the reason I am emphasizing that you need to give these topics a bit of time, right? Handle them tactfully and give them time. Okay, now we also have topics that may not have been mentioned here, but they are actually, I can call them very popular. I can call them very popular and popular and passable. Accept please this word. Let me use that word. Popular and passable topics. Right? These are topics that learners find it easy to work with, and therefore I could call them popular. I could also say they are passable. So let's look at some of these topics. The first one is Whole numbers. Look at whole numbers. Whole numbers. This is a topic which is taught across board from primary 1 up to primary 7. And therefore, it is evident that our learners will not find problems with such a topic, which is the reason you may not have a lot of time on this topic. However, the guidance is gotten from where? The curriculum. Please make sure the curriculum is your major guidance. Right. Then we have another topic which is very popular across the cycle and even in secondary as well as tertiary institutions. And this is set concepts. Right? Year after year, we have questions about set concepts. We may refer to the 2023 PLE if you like. In 2023, set concepts had section A 2 marks and section B 5 marks. How many marks are those? It's 7. But these are doable concepts. Learners can easily work well with them. So I would implore you to make sure that learners don't lose out these marks of set concepts. Maybe we could brainstorm a little about these set concepts. What are the concepts that are very popular in regard to set concepts? For example, the set symbols. All of them, please, and please make sure you are accurate with your content. You are relevant with your content. Never create your own content. Refer to the curriculum, right? What does it say? You may as well refer to the past papers of PLE. That is to say, when did we begin assessing this curriculum? 2010. So look at the pattern. Look at the kind of questions about the set symbols, the meaning and the usage. Then we have subsets and proper subsets. And be strategic. Surround the concept. Do not stick to the usual way of setting. Today, NEB has gotten a way of setting the items. I want to call it reverse assessment. So, for you, what you think is done daily, it's okay, that's what you know, right? Now, let us begin from what you know and see what you left out. And what you left out is where they begin. So, be mindful about that. Then we have regions on Venn diagrams, shading regions, interpreting regions. Then we have representing information on Venn diagrams. You are given information, then you represent or you complete a Venn diagram. So what are the ground rules? What are the golden rules that you have given our learners that can help them overcome a few challenges that they come across? So how can you overcome those challenges? First of all, get to know the pattern of the questions using the PLE booklet. And dear colleague, let me tell you this, year in, year out, fill the paper of PLE. You do the paper, try to reflect on that question. Do you do the paper yourself? Or you leave it to the learner? It's all, that's for the learner. Remember, you are also a learner. And when you cease to be a learner, you cease to be a teacher. Did you know that? So it's important that you fill the papers, right? Okay. Then let's look at another topic, which is also very popular and passable and real life. This is the topic about money. The topic money is so popular to you, to the learner, and to everybody around you. And therefore, this kind of question will never miss at PLE. It will never miss in your internal assessment. It will never miss in the various kind of assessments that you have. So money. So which kind of tips can we have about money? First of all, you and I know that money is taught from primary 1 up to primary 6. I hope you know that. So what are these concepts about money that are taught? For instance, buying and selling. And this is real. Who doesn't go buying? Who doesn't go selling? So this is real life. So these learners should be grounded in the concepts of money, right? Profit and loss at a later level, like primary 6, they introduce the percentage bit, percentage loss, percentage profit, that kind of thing. Preparing bills, they give you information and they say, okay, prepare a bill, right? Or even completing tables. A shopping bill is prepared in form of a table. And there are many versions of these tables. Please access them, study them, and subject them to our learners so that they also get equipped with the skills of answering such questions. Now, these tables, dear colleagues, are of various types. We have the simple version. You know that. I hope you know that. What is the simple version like? The simple version are like where they give you a table and there are a few missing pieces of information. And that is very easy. It's kind of a walkover. But they also know that they are handling candidates. So what do? They put in a trick. Sometimes the gaps that they put in are a lot tricky. So you've got to be very careful and you have to handle it very carefully. Okay? Then there is a version of what we call foreign currency transaction. In the 2023 PLE, there was a question about foreign currency transaction, and it was in a table form, you remember. So where do learners have a challenge? They have a challenge to determine who buys, who sells, when do I buy, when do I sell. And now, this kind of concepts can be developed using scenarios. So we encourage you to use scenarios when you're dealing with such complicated concepts. But actually, they're not very complicated, but they are real life. So if it is real life, and you choose to teach it on the board, what will happen? The learners will just cram and cram and cram. Therefore, any small change, the learner gets off. So that's a bit of the money. And there is also another version where there is no table. So can you please organize comprehensively assessments about these kind of topics? There is also another topic which featured more than usual, by the way, if I can say. This topic has for some time not been having a lot of questions, patterns, and sequences, right? Patterns and sequences. That's another popular topic which has a variety of concepts, and basically it is related also to patterns. It is related to whole numbers. It is also related to operations on whole numbers. So if you look at the paper for last year, dear colleague, you realize that there were this time around more than 10 marks for that topic. But something that was outstanding was the real life kind of setting, which I have called the reverse assessment. This time round, for example, in section B, there was a question about application of greatest common factor. And how many of us have ever thought of such an item? Many times we think of GCF, LCM, integration, application of LCM, but we have not thought of the application of greatest common factor. I know there are few who have done it, but majority of us might not have done it. So it's important that we really get moving that way. Reverse assessment. Okay, now we want to look at the topic that I talked about as prerequisite, which I said is very, very important. What look at that topic? And that topic is algebra. Let's look at this topic, algebra. This topic is not only prerequisite, but it is also popular, bulky, and tricky. Right? And year in, year out, there are lots of questions that are set basing on algebraic principles. So, let's look at a few of these concepts that we need to help our learners overcome. For example, we have simplifying algebraic concepts. Simplifying algebraic expressions. This is a very important concept that we need to handle very well with our learners. It's important that you exhaust it, right? How to collect like terms, how to remove brackets, how to deal with fractions, how to deal with word problems. Then we have solving simple equations. According to our curriculum, we solve simple equations. So please stick to that. Equations with the unknown on one side, equations with the unknown on both sides, equations that involve fractions, equations that involve brackets. Then, above all, how do we apply the knowledge of equations in everyday life, in a real life? So you need to source as many items as possible using the various resources and assemble them, and then you assess your learners using those items. And then we have inequalities. We also have inequalities. You do know that inequalities is also a bit of challenge to our learners. I hope you know that. So, you need to unpack that concept of inequalities in a tactical manner. Begin with what we can regard as simple. For example, inequalities with one symbol, that is one inequality symbol, without necessarily solving, especially those that require the number line. Then we have inequalities with two symbols or even with one symbol but that require solving. Then we have inequalities with two inequality symbols. Then we have inequalities that involve change of signs. Have you come across that, dear colleague? I'm sure you have. So it's important that you really help our learners to overcome those challenges and give them practice. Give them practice. You know, mathematics is practice. But not only practice, practice and review. You know, as you give the learners the assessment, try to check where they have a problem, try to review, try to remediate, right? Okay. Now, let's also look at, by the way, algebra, as I have said, I want to emphasize, is also integrated into other topics. What are these other topics I'm talking about? Commonly, you realize that the topic lines, angles, and geometric figures has a lot of algebra issues. So we need to also do the same. But I want to allay your fears. If your learners are well grounded in these concepts of algebra, it will be very easy for them to handle the concepts of angles. For example, unknown angles. Because unknown angles require forming equations. And if you have formed an equation, what next? You have to solve the equation. And where do you get that knowledge? You get it from algebra, right? Colleagues, let's continue moving on, trying to unpack these topics that we have already seen. Let's look at the topic fractions. Let's look at the topic fractions. Let's look at the topic of fractions. Dear colleagues, fractions. By far, this could be one of the topics with a lot of content, actually, a lot and a lot and a lot. At one time, in 2018, dear colleagues, I want to tell you that what happened in 2018, actually not 2018, 2019. In 2019, PLE, actually not, okay, let's begin with 2019. 2019, there were 14 marks for the topic fractions. But in 2020, surprisingly, there were 19. Can you imagine 19 marks, 5 items gotten from the topic fractions. So this topic is another one with very big content. So let's look at some of these concepts. First of all, there are these lower class concepts which I don't need to dwell a lot on because I know your learners have done them and therefore you're just building on what they already know. So such could be like operations on fractions, both vulgar and decimal. So, how are your learners? Are they able to add with ease? Are they able to subtract with ease? Are they able to multiply? Are they able to divide? Are they able to deal with multiple operations put in one item? Is it possible for your learners to deal with that kind of question with ease? You have seen it over the years, where they bring questions that require the knowledge of adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing, sometimes put together, haven't you? So, prepare learners well for that. Then, there is also changing changing from vulgar to decimals. From vulgar to decimals. Terminating and non-terminating. There are fractions which are terminating, like a half, like a quarter, like 2/5. Then there are those that are recurring, like 2/3, like a 1/6, like a third. So, are your learners able to do the conversions from vulgar to decimals, and also from decimals to vulgar? It could be a terminating decimal 0.75 to a fraction. So is your learner able to do that? But it can also be a recurring decimal. For example, change 0.1333 with the 3 dots, meaning it is continuous. That means it is recurring, to a fraction, 0.727272 to a fraction. That is to say, if it is recurring. So is it easy for your learners, right? Then we have application of fractions in everyday life. Everyday life. Every year there is a question in that regard. Can you please check your 2023 PLE paper? Look at it, go to section B. Look at that question. Which required the knowledge of application of fractions in real life? You know, every time the books you visit, they look at the tabs, you know, 2 tabs, you know, being opened at the same time, one being opened, another being closed, you know, that kind of thing. But now, here you are, real life. Even in the village, they took you to the village. People digging, you know, and some people had not touched that concept. So which is the reason I want to really emphasize that we should surround our concepts. Let's surround them as much as possible, right? Then we have percentage, still under fractions. We have percentage. We have percentage increase. We have percentage decrease. And its application. It's important that every concept you handle ends in its what? Application. Right? Relatedly, there is percentage profit and loss. And loss, right? And application. Then we have simple interest. We have simple interest. We have rate, right? We have principle. We have time, all related to simple interest. So, how have you surrounded that concept? So, colleagues, we must be strategically teaching these concepts, strategically assessing the concepts. Okay, so let's struggle to do that and ensure that really our learners perform well, right? Okay, we have simple proportion. We have simple proportion. We have direct proportion if you want, and then indirect proportion. We have sharing using ratio. We have decreasing using ratio, increasing in ratio, and then we have also ratio integrated with other topics. For example, ratio integrated with the lines, angles, and geometric figures, especially when it comes to angles, right? So it's important that we handle these topics, but as I emphasized, we need to be tactical by ensuring that we surround every concept. Okay, then we could look at uh, a few tips, colleagues. Let's look at a few tips that can help us to um, uh, improve the performance of our learners. Let's look at a few tips. And here I want to use the words common mistakes that learners make and how to avoid them. Let's look at these common mistakes and how to avoid them, right? Okay. So, the first one, which is very common, uh, common mistakes and how to avoid them, right? I want to focus majorly on our candidates. The first common mistake is called a misread. You can call it rush, if you don't mind. A misread or a rush is a situation where the learner reads a question very quickly, actually too quickly, and maybe misses out some words, and maybe even mistakes some words to be others. And sometimes they just get excited. Oh, maybe Teacher Peter at one moment went through that kind of concept, and when he opens the paper, he sees a question which is related to what Teacher Peter took him or her through. So, this is it. And this I could also relate to stereotyping. Stereotyping. This is a situation where learners imagine that this question must be said like this. If they just make a small alteration, then the learner is off. Says, no, there is a mistake with this question. We can't even raise if it is internal examination. Excuse me, teacher, there is a mistake. And sincerely, there is no mistake. The mistake there is that the learner is rushing. The learner is misreading. The learner has a stereotype mentality. So what do we have to do? How do we overcome that? We've got to institute the 3 reads. We have to institute the 3 reads. Okay? I want to explain what I mean by 3 reads. First of all, by the way, before I give you these 3 reads, have you taught our learners to read fast? Not rushing, but reading fast. You know, and I do, that when they are faced with a screen at home, and there is an advert, how long does it take? Just seconds. So our learners should get used to reading faster. Even in math, our motto, what is it? Speed and accuracy. So let's have this. The three reads. One is reading at a glance. The learner gets access to the question and reads quickly. Ah, but has this learner understood the question? No. What next? Reading to begin. Reading to begin. Now the learner is going to begin. But as he begins, he first reads. Right? But also, that's not enough. There is also reading as they work out. So each time the learner reads, he's supposed to reflect on the keywords, to reflect on what is the question about, what is required of me, and that kind of thing. And therefore, one after another, reading at a glance, reading to begin, and this one, each time is working out, gets back to the question. Am I on track? Oh, I've made a mistake. Right? So this is it. So that is one common mistake. Another common mistake is crossing work. Crossing work. I imagine even at your station, learners do cross work. Inevitably, you can cross something that, you've made a mistake somewhere, therefore you cross. But we want to see, what does it mean to cross work? If you cross work, what is the implication? Let us see. So, common mistake number 2 is crossing work. Some people call it unnecessary crossing of work. I don't want to use that word unnecessary. Let me say crossing work. Because when you cross work, your work looks dirty, first of all. So crossing work, what does it mean? It means, first of all, let me talk about this crossing of work. Some learners cross the right work and put there the wrong work. And they are confident that what I have changed is correct. So it's not necessary that our learners keep crossing work. There's no need. Now, the meaning of crossing work, number 1 is that do not mark. You who is going to mark, when I cross work, do not mark. Secondly, I have cheated. Have you had results being confiscated or withheld? Sometimes they arise from these kind of things. Learners crossing left and right, left and right. Yeah? One paper having so many crosses. And then they look at maybe like 10 of them having that kind of thing. So they say, oh, these people now cheated. Right? Then the other one is, I am not sure. I am not sure. Are we teaching children not to be sure? We are teaching them to be sure, to be confident. So a confident pupil will complete a paper without necessarily crossing. And then internally, what happens? This learner is telling you, get annoyed. Get annoyed with me. So you get annoyed. And colleagues, the problem with some of the people who get annoyed, sometimes they bring out a cane. Very traditional. Lie down. What is the reason? You crossed work. So you can see how dangerous crossing work is. So colleagues, let's discourage crossing work. Another common mistake is, this time I'm using the word unnecessary. Unnecessary pencil work. Unnecessary pencil work. So let's guide our learners to read the instructions. You get the paper, there is a cover page. Read the instructions. Normally the instructions will say, diagrams will be drawn in pencil, right? Drawing is related to construction. It means construction and drawing can be done in pencil. Now, the other working should be done in ink. Some teachers, not you, but some teachers say that when learners use pencil work, they are very neat, especially when they are cancelling their work, the work looks very neat. But who told you that? A learner can be neat even when they use pens. So what we do is to encourage our learners to be organized. And if you want your learners to be organized, what do? You be organized. If you're using a whiteboard, be organized. You're using a chalkboard, be organized. Because these learners, it is easy to tell them, get organized, but then they want to see you, teacher, you're telling me to be organized. Are you organized? So let's be organized, right? Let's encourage learners to be organized and use pencil only when it is required. When is it required? It is required to draw, it is required to construct, and that's all. Even labeling of diagrams is in ink. Even counseling is in ink. Even mathematics symbols are made in ink. I hope that message is clear, dear colleague, dear viewer. Good. Okay. Let's look at the last one. And this is work presentation. Work presentation. Work presentation. Work presentation. Many of our learners don't present their work well. The way they present work is very funny. First of all, the handwriting is horrible. They write cartoonish digits. They scatter work all over. Some of them even go to an extent of saying, please check at the back. Now, who is going to check at the back? And who has that time? So, teach our learners to present their work from left to right systematically. Let them partition their paper properly using a pen and a ruler. They move step by step until they come to the answer. And these answers should be underlined. Please discourage learners from writing the word solution for every work they are doing. Solution. Number one, solution. Number two now, solution. It's tiring, boring, and unnecessary. So let's really have our learners organized. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you so much. I hope we shall move on until we make sure our learners are better and ready for doing well. God bless you. Next time, we shall still look at the PLE, right, 2023, and what lessons do we draw from that PLE, right? So that's what we're going to handle next time. God bless. Bye-bye.